Ned Stark had always been a man of honor, and his honor often kept him blind to the dirty games of King's Landing. But that night, when Robert called for more wine after his hunt, something inside Ned made him uneasy. The way Cersei's eyes followed the cup, the faint smirk at the corner of her lips, it all seemed wrong. He knew Robert was reckless, but poison? It was not a hunter's wound that would end him. It was a queen's dagger hidden in a goblet. Ned had seen betrayal before, and his gut told him Robert was in danger. He moved quickly, stepping closer to the king just as the servant poured the drink. "Your Grace," Ned said firmly, almost harshly, as Robert reached for the cup. "That wine is not fit for you." "I'll taste it first," Robert laughed, his belly shaking. "Seven hells, Stark! I've known you half my life. Have you grown so grim you think my own wife means to kill me?" But Ned didn't laugh. His face was stone, his eyes dark. Without asking, he took the cup, lifted it, and let the liquid touch his lips. The bitterness on his tongue told him everything. He spat it out instantly, his jaw tight with fury. "It is poisoned," he said quietly, but his voice carried like steel through the tent. Robert froze. His smile vanished, his hand falling to his sword out of old habit. Around them, the servants went pale as ghosts. Cersei, who had stepped inside to watch, stiffened. For the first time in years, the mighty king looked at her not with drunken lust, but with suspicion sharp as a blade. "What game is this, woman?" Robert roared, his voice shaking the tent poles. "Have you finally grown tired of your king?" Cersei did not flinch. She had been raised among lions. Fear was never her mask. "You insult me, my lord. If there is poison in your cup, it is because the wolves have learned to bare their fangs." She turned her glare on Ned, her green eyes burning. But Robert was not a fool. Not tonight. For once he saw clearly. He slammed his fist against the table, sending plates crashing. "Enough lies. Stark has saved my life more times than I can count. If he says it's poison, then poison it is." The tent filled with shouts. Guards rushed in, not sure whether to seize the queen or protect her. The air grew heavy, sharp with the scent of betrayal. And for the first time, Ned Stark realized the game he had stepped into was no longer shadows and whispers. It was open war between the king and the queen. The silence after Robert's outburst was heavier than steel armor. Every man in the tent could feel the weight of it. The king's eyes were on Cersei, wide with fury, and for the first time since their marriage, she realized Robert was not drunk enough to be fooled. "Take her!" Robert barked at his guards. His voice thundered like the war drums of his youth. "Lock her in her chambers until I decide her fate. And bring me the servant who poured this wine. I want him broken until he speaks every truth he knows." The guards hesitated, their faces pale. To lay hands on the queen was no small order. Some looked at Cersei, unsure, but Robert's roar shook them to action. "Now!" Two men stepped forward, seizing her arms. Cersei did not fight. Her lips curved into a cold smile instead. "You may think this is your victory, Robert, but you do not know the game you've begun." Her voice was low, dangerous. She let herself be dragged away, her golden hair shining in the firelight, her smirk like poison in the king's veins. When she was gone, Robert leaned back, his breath heavy. His eyes went to Ned, and for a moment he looked not like a king, but like a tired, broken man. "You've saved me again, old friend," Robert said, his voice softer now. "But gods be damned, I don't know what's left to save. My realm is rotten, my family worse. The woman I called wife has tried to kill me." Ned stood firm, his hands behind his back. "You must act quickly, Robert. Cersei is not a woman who makes a single move without planning the next 10. If you leave her free too long, she will strike harder." Robert slammed his fist on the table. "She'll pay. By the gods, she'll pay. Treason and murder in my own hall? She's no queen. She's a snake in silk." His rage shook the tent, but Ned saw something else in his eyes too, fear, because if the queen dared poison the king, then her power was already great. And if she had such power, she was not acting alone. That night, Robert gathered his closest men, Renly, his younger brother, Barristan Selmy, the White Knight, and Ned. The council was small, private, and full of distrust. Robert told them everything. How Ned had tasted the poison, how Cersei had been caught with her mask slipping. Renly was the first to speak. She should be executed. No trial, no speeches. Cut her head off before dawn, and her lions will scatter. His voice trembled with eagerness, his eyes shining with ambition. But Ned shook his head. That would spark civil war. The Lannisters will not let their daughter be butchered quietly. Tywin will march, and blood will drown the realm. We must be careful, Robert growled, frustrated. Careful? Careful is what brought me here. I should have strangled her years ago. I was too drunk, too blind. He rubbed his face with a heavy hand, then looked up. Tell me, Ned, what would you do? What does honor say now? Ned hesitated. Honor was his shield, but in King's Landing, honor was also a chain around his neck. Yet he could not lie. Send her back to Casterly Rock. Strip her of crown and title. She has no place beside you. But spare her life for now. Keep the peace while you still can. Robert cursed under his breath. He wanted blood, but part of him knew Ned was right. He turned to Barristan. And you, sir? What say you? The old knight's face was pale, but his voice steady. Your Grace, if the Queen truly tried to poison you, she has broken every vow she made as wife and as queen. She cannot stay, but Lord Stark is wise. Her death will tear the realm apart. Her exile may give you time. Robert sat in silence, his hand tightening on his cup, the same cup that had nearly ended his life. Then he stood. So be it. She will be cast aside. She will live, but as no queen of mine. And if the Lannisters raise banners against me, I will smash them as I smashed Rhaegar. The meeting ended with heavy hearts. Renly left in anger, muttering about weakness. Barristan bowed, his white cloak trailing like snow. And Ned lingered, knowing this choice would only delay the storm. When Robert was alone, he poured himself a new drink. Fresh, safe wine this time. He drank deep, but the taste was bitter, not because of poison, but because of truth. The war was no longer whispers in the dark. It had begun with poison, and soon it would burn the realm. And in the shadows of the Red Keep, Cersei Lannister sat behind locked doors, her smile never fading. She whispered to herself, the king thinks he has won, let him. The game has only just started. The Red Keep was never silent, not even at night. Its halls carried whispers, footsteps, the scraping of armor, the rustle of skirts. And in those whispers, Cersei's name now spread like wildfire. Some servants said she had tried to kill the king. Others swore it was Lord Stark's trick to drive her away. Truth and lies mixed, and no one could tell which was which. Locked in her chamber, Cersei paced like a lioness behind bars. The guards outside thought she was helpless, but they knew nothing of her claws. Even without freedom, she had allies. Letters could be smuggled, secrets carried by loyal hands. The walls of her prison were stone, but her power stretched beyond them. That night Cersei called for her maid, a timid girl with frightened eyes. "Find Jaime," she whispered sharply, her green gaze hard. "Tell him everything. Tell him the wolf seeks to tear us down, and that the stag has turned on his queen. Tell him it is time." The girl trembled but obeyed. She knew what happened to those who disobeyed the queen. Meanwhile, Ned Stark walked the halls with a heavy heart. He had done what honor demanded, saved the king, uncovered the truth. Yet instead of peace, he saw chaos growing. The Lannisters were not fools. They would not let this insult pass. Tywin Lannister, cold and merciless, would hear of it soon. And when he did, the realm would bleed. Robert, for his part, had grown restless. He ordered more wine, more food, more hunts, as though drowning his anger in old pleasures. But his laughter was hollow now. He looked at Ned with eyes that no longer trusted the walls around him. "They all want me dead, Stark," he muttered one night, his voice thick with drink. "The Queen, her family, even the damn council, only you I can trust." Ned wished that were enough. Days passed. Renly disappeared from the council chamber, his anger at Robert's weakness keeping him away. Varys, the spider, whispered softly about keeping the peace, while Littlefinger smirked and spoke of opportunity. Only Barristan stood steady, guarding the king's honor like a white tower. But outside those chambers, the game was shifting. Jaime Lannister, the Golden Lion, had received his sister's message. He stormed into the Queen's chamber at night, past the guards who dared not challenge him. Poison? Jaime hissed, his handsome face twisted in fury. You tried to poison Robert? Are you mad? Cersei lifted her chin, unashamed. He's a drunken fool, a weak king. The sooner he dies, the sooner Joffrey sits the throne where he belongs. Where our son belongs. Jaime's anger faltered at the mention of Joffrey, but his worry deepened. And now Stark knows. He will tell Robert everything. He will tell him about the children. For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. Cersei's lips curled. Not yet. He suspects nothing of that. His honor blinds him. But if he dares speak, then Robert will know. And when he knows, he will kill us all. Do you understand now, Jaime? We must strike before he does. Jaime ran a hand through his golden hair. So what would you have me do? March into Robert's chambers and slit his throat while the wolf stands guard. Cersei's voice dropped, cold and sharp. Not Robert Stark, it is he who keeps the king alive. Without him, Robert will stumble into death all on his own. Jaime stared at her, torn between love and dread. But Cersei's eyes burned with fire, and he knew she would not stop. While the lions plotted, Ned found himself once again in the Godswood, seeking quiet under the heart tree. He thought of Catelyn, of Winterfell, of his children so far away. He wondered if he had doomed them by staying in this city of vipers. Yet he could not leave, not while Robert still leaned on him. A rustle of leaves made him turn. It was Varys, stepping carefully as always, his soft voice slipping into the stillness. Lord Stark, the spider said, bowing his bald head. The queen is not idle. Even in her cage she weaves. You must know that. Ned's jaw tightened. What do you want, Varys? To keep the realm from burning, Varys whispered. I serve the realm as I always have. And if the queen's lions bare their teeth, you will need more than honor to face them. Ned's eyes narrowed, but before he could answer, a horn sounded in the distance, a warning call. Both men froze. Moments later, a guard ran breathless into the Godswood. My lord, Sir Jaime has drawn steel in the courtyard. He demands Lord Stark come at once. Ned's hand went to his sword, his heart heavy as stone. He knew then that the war was no longer creeping in shadows. The lions had made their move. The courtyard of the Red Keep was alive with the clash of steel and the shouting of men. Torches blazed along the walls, throwing shadows that danced like wild spirits. Jaime Lannister stood in the center, golden armor gleaming even in the night, his sword drawn and his face as calm as a summer sea. Ned entered with a handful of Stark men at his side, their hands on hilts, eyes wary. He moved slowly, his hand on ice, the great sword that marked him as Lord of Winterfell. The air was thick with tension. Kingslayer, Ned said, his voice hard as iron, what madness drives you to this? Jaime smirked, tilting his head. Madness? No, Stark, call it family. You put your wolf's nose where it doesn't belong. My sister sits locked away like a criminal, humiliated before the court. That will not stand. Ned's eyes narrowed. She tried to poison the king. She put her children's claim above Robert's life. You know this, Jaime. You know the truth. For a heartbeat, something flickered in Jaime's eyes, guilt or perhaps fear, but it vanished as quickly as it came. He twirled his sword with practiced ease, his smile sharp. Truth is what we make of it. And the truth you carry, Stark, will destroy us all if it reaches Robert's ears. Ned stepped closer, his men fanning out behind him. Are you confessing, then, that Joffrey is not Robert's son? The courtyard went deathly quiet. Even the guards who had gathered froze, their faces pale. Jaime's smirk faltered, but only for a breath. Then he lifted his sword, its steel catching the torchlight. You speak too freely, Wolf. And that tongue of yours may cost you your life. Before Ned could answer, Jaime lunged. Steel met steel with a scream, sparks flying as ice caught Jaime's blade. The sound echoed across the courtyard, drawing more eyes to the fight. Stark men and Lannister guards drew their swords too, waiting for the command to strike. Ned grunted as Jaime pressed forward, his strike swift and deadly. The Kingslayer moved like liquid fire, every swing smooth, every thrust precise. Ned's greatsword was heavier, slower, but his strength and stubborn will held against Jaime's fury. Their blades clashed again and again, each strike shaking Ned's bones. He could see now why men whispered of Jaime's skill. He was no knight in name only. He was a killer, wrapped in golden silk. "Your old Stark," Jaime hissed as their blades locked. Too slow. Too honorable. Ned shoved him back with a surge of strength, his jaw tight. "And you're reckless. You hide behind honor you don't possess. You stabbed a king in the back, and you'd do the same again." Jaime's eyes flashed with rage, and he came again, faster, harder. Sparks flew as steel rang out, the fight circling through the courtyard. Men shouted, guards shifted, but none dared step between them. Then chaos broke loose. A Stark man cried out as a Lannister guard shoved him with a spear. Another answered with steel, and in a heartbeat the courtyard erupted into blood. Wolves and lions clashed, blades flashing, men screaming. Ned's focus wavered as he saw one of his men cut down. Jaime seized the moment, striking with vicious speed. His blade nicked Ned's side, tearing through leather. Blood spread warm beneath Ned's tunic, but he did not falter. He swung ice in a wide arc, forcing Jaime back. The sound of battle grew louder, drowning the night. The clash of loyalties had burst into open war, and every man fought not for king or crown, but for family name. Ned's breath grew heavy, but his eyes stayed sharp. He saw Jaime smile again, that same cruel, careless smile that had haunted him since King's Landing. "You can't win this, Stark. Even if you kill me, my father will burn your north to ashes." Ned tightened his grip on ice. "Then let him come. The North remembers." With a roar he struck, forcing Jaime to block with all his strength. The force of the blow rang through the courtyard, shaking even the men who watched. And then, just as blood was about to spill further, a booming voice cut through the chaos. "Stop this madness!" Robert Baratheon himself had arrived, drunk but furious, his crown askew, his face red with rage. Behind him came Barristan Selmy and a dozen gold cloaks. The fighting stilled at once. Men froze with blades mid-swing, panting and bloodied. Jaime stepped back, sword still in hand, his golden hair sticking to his face. Ned lowered ice slowly, his chest heaving. Robert's eyes swept the scene, disbelief and fury warring in his face. "Have you all lost your senses? Fighting like dogs in my own yard?" Ned opened his mouth, but Robert raised a hand to silence him. His eyes fell on Jaime first. "Put up your sword, Kingslayer, or I'll have your head before dawn." For a moment Jaime seemed ready to defy him. Then with a mocking bow he slid his blade back into its sheath. "As you command, your grace." Robert turned then to Ned, his old friend, his brother in arms. "And you, Stark, God's help me, I thought you'd bring me peace, not war." His voice cracked with anger and despair. "You force my hand. There'll be no turning back from this." Ned felt the weight of those words. The game was no longer whispers in chambers. It was blood on the stones of the Red Keep, and somewhere behind locked doors, Cersei Lannister smiled when she heard the shouts echo through the castle. The lions had bared their claws, and the wolf had answered. The realm was now on the edge of war. The next morning, the Red Keep felt like a pot about to boil over. The courtyard still bore the marks of blood, dried dark on the stones, though the servants had scrubbed since dawn. Men whispered as they worked, fearful of what would come next. Some swore the Starks had started it, others said Jaime had lost his wits. But everyone agreed on one thing. The peace of King's Landing was broken. Robert Baratheon sat in the council chamber, slouched on the iron throne, his hand rubbing at his forehead. His anger had burned through the night, leaving him tired and bitter. The great hall was filled with tension, Ned Stark on one side, Jaime and the Lannisters absent but looming in everyone's minds, and the rest of the small council fidgeting like nervous hens. "I'll not have this again," Robert barked, his voice echoing off the cold walls. "Wolves and lions tearing at each other in my own yard. 7 hells, I should strip both houses of their pride and toss them to the sea." Ned stood stiffly, his face pale but his voice steady. "Your Grace, I did not seek the fight. Jaime drew steel first. He would have killed me if I had not defended myself." Littlefinger smirked from his seat, fingers steepled under his chin. And yet blood was spilled, a fight without a victor. But the losers are clear enough: peace, trust, and the realm itself. His words were honeyed, but his eyes glittered, enjoying the spectacle. Varys, soft and smooth, added, "The people are already whispering, my king. They say your crown weakens when your own household fights within its walls. They wonder what will happen if Lord Tywin hears of this," Robert growled. "Tywin will hear of it, and let him. If he dares raise banners against me, I'll smash him as I smashed Rhaegar." He thumped his chest with a meaty hand, but the fire in his voice was dimmer than it once was. Ned spoke again, his tone careful. "Your Grace, if you wish to keep the peace, Jaime must be punished. No man should draw steel in your yard and walk free, not even the Kingslayer." At that, the chamber stirred. Some council members shifted in their seats, and even Robert looked uneasy. Barristan Selmy spoke for the first time, his white cloak bright against the gloom. "Lord Stark is right, Your Grace. The law is clear. Sir Jaime should answer for this crime." But Robert only scowled, torn between anger and fear. "And what then? Put Jaime's head on a spike and watch Tywin march on the capital with 60,000 men. No, I have enough enemies without stirring that hornet's nest." Cersei had been silent until now, seated at the far end of the chamber, her eyes cool and her face a mask of calm. She had been freed from her chambers that morning by Robert's own order, an order made more from exhaustion than forgiveness. Now she leaned forward, her voice smooth as silk. "My lord husband is wise," she said softly. "He knows that punishing my brother will not bring peace, but only more blood. Perhaps Lord Stark should remember that wolves have sharp teeth, but lions hunt in packs." Ned's jaw tightened, but he held his tongue. Robert, however, slammed his hand on the arm of the throne. "Enough of your riddles, woman. You will not poison this council with your venom. Speak plain or keep silent." Cersei only smiled faintly, bowing her head. But her eyes never left Ned, cold and sharp. The council broke up in uneasy silence. Robert stormed away to his chambers, demanding wine, while the rest scattered like birds before a storm. Ned lingered, his heart heavy, his thoughts troubled. He had saved Robert from poison, but he wondered now if he had only delayed the inevitable. Later that evening he walked the halls with his men close by. The Red Keep no longer felt safe. Everywhere he turned, he saw Lannister red, guards whispering, servants watching. Even the air seemed thick with secrets. At Winterfell, the world had been simple: honor, duty, family. But here, each step felt like a blade's edge. In the Queen's chambers, Cersei sat with Jaime once more. Her voice was low, her tone hard. "The king will not punish you. He is too weak, but Stark grows bolder. He suspects too much. If he lives, he will uncover everything. And if Robert listens, all we've built will crumble." Jaime leaned back, his golden hand tapping against his sword hilt. "So we strike again." Cersei's smile was thin, cruel. "Not with blades this time. With whispers, with gold, with the council itself. We will turn Robert against his dear friend. And when the time is right, the wolf will fall without us ever lifting a sword." Jaime smirked. "And if that fails?" Cersei's eyes gleamed. "Then we use the sword." Outside, the bells of the city tolled as the sun set, casting long shadows over the streets. The people whispered of war, though no banners had yet been raised. The realm trembled on the edge, and every man, woman, and child felt it, and Ned Stark, alone in his chambers, looked out across the city he hated, wondering if honor could survive in a place built on lies. The days that followed were quieter on the surface, but beneath that calm, the Red Keep seethed like a pit of snakes. Robert returned to his old ways, drinking, hunting, whoring, as if drowning the memory of betrayal in wine. To many, it seemed he had forgotten the poison, forgotten the courtyard fight, forgotten the danger that crept so close. But Ned Stark knew better. He could see it in Robert's eyes. The king was retreating, not ruling. Cersei took full advantage. She wore no chains, no signs of punishment, moving through the halls like a queen untouchable. When Robert was drunk, she whispered in his ear, her voice soft as silk. When the council gathered, she sat silent at first, letting others speak, then cutting in with a venomous word at the perfect moment. Slowly, piece by piece, she rebuilt what Ned had tried to break. One afternoon, the council met in the Tower of the Hand. The air was thick, the windows closed against the summer heat. Littlefinger leaned lazily against his chair, playing with a coin. Varys fanned himself with a feather. Renly was absent again. "The king will not come," Varys said smoothly, his bald head shining with sweat. "He has duties elsewhere." "Duties?" Ned snapped, his patience thin. "Drinking until he cannot stand is not duty. Whoring is not duty. The realm is crumbling, while Robert drowns himself in wine, and you all call it duty." Cersei's voice cut through, sharp and calm. "Perhaps, Lord Stark, the realm crumbles because you bring war into its walls. It was not Robert who raised a sword in the courtyard. It was you." Ned's jaw clenched. "I defended myself against your brother's treachery. Or is that what you call honor in Casterly Rock, drawing steel on the king's hand?" Littlefinger chuckled, the sound low and mocking. "Gentle friends, must we bleed words as we bled steel? If the realm is to survive, perhaps we should speak not of past quarrels, but of the future." "And what future is that?" Ned asked coldly. "The boy," Littlefinger said, shrugging. "Joffrey will come of age soon enough. The king is tired. Perhaps the time has come to prepare for the next rule." At that, Ned's blood ran cold. His eyes flicked to Cersei, who sat back with a faint smile, her gaze never leaving him. The trap was plain. If Robert stepped aside, or was pushed aside, Joffrey would be crowned. And if Joffrey was not Robert's son, then the realm would be handed to a false king. "You speak treason," Ned growled, his voice like stone. But Varys only spread his hands. "No, my lord. We speak survival. A weak king invites enemies. A strong heir inspires loyalty. Surely you, a father, understand the need to protect children." Ned's heart pounded. He wanted to shout the truth, wanted to spit out the secret he had begun to piece together about Cersei's children, their golden hair, their bloodline that was not Baratheon. But his honor held his tongue. He had no proof yet, only suspicion, and suspicion would not save him. The meeting broke with no resolution, only more whispers. As the council left, Cersei passed close to Ned, her perfume heavy in the air. She leaned in, her words meant for his ear alone. "You cannot win, Stark. You saved Robert once, but you will not save him again. He is mine, and so is the throne. Go back to your frozen north before you choke on your honor." Ned did not answer. His hand tightened on the pommel of his sword, but he held his silence. He would not trade barbs with lions in their den. That night, he wrote a letter to Winterfell. His hand shook as he sealed it, the words heavy. He urged Catelyn to guard the children, to prepare for war if need be. He feared they would be dragged into this storm, whether they willed it or not. In the Queen's chambers, meanwhile, Cersei sat with Joffrey. The boy was restless, cruel even in play, snapping at servants, boasting of the crown that would soon be his. Cersei stroked his hair, her eyes gleaming with pride. "You will be king," she whispered, "and all will bow to you. The Starks, the Baratheons, even the old lion at Casterly Rock, they will all kneel. But you must be strong. Stronger than your father ever was." Joffrey grinned, sharp and eager. "And if Stark stands against me?" Cersei's smile never wavered. "Then Stark dies." In the shadows, Jaime lingered, his golden armor shining faintly. He said nothing, but his hand rested on his sword. His loyalty to his sister was unshaken, though his gaze was clouded with doubt. The city outside carried on as always, markets bustling, bells ringing, but beneath the surface, war was brewing. The people whispered of wolves and lions, of poison and blades, of a king too drunk to see the storm above his head, and Ned Stark, lying awake in his chamber, felt the weight of the North pressing on his shoulders. He had saved Robert once. He doubted he could do it again. The city baked under the summer sun, the air heavy and thick. From the windows of the Tower of the Hand, Ned Stark watched the streets below. Merchants argued over prices. Children ran barefoot through the dust, and gold cloaks marched with spears gleaming in the light. To the common folk, life carried on. But Ned knew the realm stood on the edge of a blade. In his chambers, scrolls and books lay scattered across the table. Ned had spent nights poring over family lineages, the histories of noble houses, the lines of blood and marriage. It was a puzzle, and piece by piece it had fallen into place. Every Baratheon child for centuries, black of hair. Even bastards bore the same mark. But Joffrey, Myrcella and Tommen were golden, like the lions of Lannister. It was no longer suspicion. It was truth. The children were not Roberts. They were Jaime's. Ned felt sick as he stared at the words before him. He thought of Robert, laughing and drinking, blind to the betrayal in his own bed. He thought of the realm, trusting that Robert's heir would carry his strength. And he thought of Cersei, cunning and fearless, who had built her web of lies with such care. He sent for his daughter, Sansa. When she entered, wide-eyed and smiling, he felt the weight of what he must do. "Pack your things," he told her gently. "You and your sister will return to Winterfell soon." Sansa's smile faded. "But father, I am to marry Joffrey. The queen herself said so. I will be his queen, and you will be proud." Ned's heart ached. "You do not understand. That marriage will never be. You must trust me, child." But Sansa only cried, begging him to let her stay, blind to the danger. Arya, when she heard, only scowled and muttered about swords and kings being stupid. Ned could not make them see. He could only protect them as best he could. That evening, Robert returned from another hunt, staggering into the hall with wine on his breath. Ned found him alone, slumped in a chair, his great frame sagging under his own weight. "You should not drink so much," Ned said quietly. Robert looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "Don't start, Stark. I've had enough of your scolding." "What now, another lecture on honor? Another warning about my queen?" Ned took a deep breath. He had held the secret in his chest too long. "It is not only your queen, Robert. It is your children. They are not yours. They are Jaime's." For a moment, the only sound was the crackle of the fire. Robert stared at him, his mouth half open as if he had not understood. Then his face darkened, his fist tightening on the arm of the chair. "Say that again," he growled. Ned's voice did not waver. "Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, they are not of your blood. Their hair, their features, their very line betrays them. The truth is plain. The queen has lied to you. She has made you raise another man's children as your own." Robert's roar shook the hall. He shot to his feet, his hand on his sword, his face twisted with rage and pain. "Lies! You dare spit such filth at me?" Ned met his eyes. "I would not tell you if I were not certain. Look for yourself, Robert. You know it to be true." Robert's breath came heavy, his fists trembling. For the first time in years, the great king looked broken. He sank back into his chair, his face pale. "Gods! If this is true, then I've been living with a viper in my bed. I've been raising bastards as kings." Ned spoke softly. "You must act now, Robert. Remove Cersei and her children before she strikes again. Name your true heir. Do not let the realm fall into her hands." Robert covered his face with his hands, silent for a long time. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet with fury. "Leave me. Leave me, Ned. I need to think." Ned bowed, though his heart was heavy, and left the hall. He had spoken the truth, but truth alone was never enough in King's Landing. In her chamber, Cersei already knew. She had eyes everywhere, and one of them had heard Ned's words. She stood by the window, staring out at the city, her lips curved in a cold smile. "So," she murmured, "the wolf bears his teeth." Jaime stepped from the shadows. "Then what now?" Cersei turned, her eyes hard as green glass. "Now we strike. Robert will not kill me, not yet. But Stark, he must be silenced before he can poison the realm with his honor." That night, whispers spread through the Red Keep. Gold passed from hand to hand, knives found new owners, and shadows moved where they had no right to be. The final move was coming. The dawn came heavy with clouds, as though the sky itself sensed the storm brewing. The Red Keep was restless. Servants whispered nervously. Guards shifted uneasily, and even the birds seemed silent on the ramparts. The realm stood at a crossroads, and every soul within the castle felt it. Robert Baratheon sat in his chamber, a goblet untouched before him. His face was pale, his eyes sunken. The words Ned Stark had spoken weighed on him like an anvil. All night he had turned them over in his mind. He had thought of Joffrey's golden hair, of Cersei's cold smile, of Jaime's shadow always so near. He had thought of Lyanna and the promise he had broken at her deathbed. When Ned entered, Robert looked older than ever before. He gestured weakly for his old friend to come closer. "Stark," he muttered, "I can hardly look you in the eye." "You've torn my world apart." Ned stood tall, though his heart was heavy. "The truth was always there, Robert. You only refused to see it. But now you must act. For the good of the realm." Robert gave a bitter laugh. "The good of the realm. Gods, how many times have I heard those words? Everyone says them. Varys, Littlefinger, even my lioness. And now you. Yet none of you agree on what it means." His voice cracked. "What am I, Ned? A king? Or a fool in a crown?" Ned answered quietly. "You are Robert Baratheon, the man who won the throne by his own strength. Do not lose it now to lies and treachery." Before Robert could reply, the doors burst open. Cersei entered with Jaime at her side, gold cloaks at their back. Her green eyes burned, her face calm as stone. "My lord husband," she said smoothly, "your hand fills your head with poison. He seeks to turn you against your queen, against your own blood. Will you allow him to shame our children, to shame your house?" Robert surged to his feet, his rage boiling up once more. "My house? Do not speak of my house, woman. My house is Baratheon, and those brats you birthed are no kin of mine." The chamber froze. Even the gold cloaks flinched. Jaime's hand went to his sword, his golden hair shining in the dim light. Cersei's smile did not falter. "So the wolf has done his work well. He has poisoned you against your own family. And now you would tear us apart, Robert. You would name yourself father of none?" Robert's voice broke into a roar. "They are not mine." "Say it plain, Cersei. Say whose they are." For a moment, silence reigned. Then Cersei lifted her chin, her pride unshaken. "They are Jaime's, and better is blood than the bastard blood of a drunkard and a whoremonger." The words struck Robert like a spear. His face twisted with fury and grief. He stumbled forward, his hand on his sword. "I should kill you where you stand," he growled. Jaime stepped between them, blade drawn. "You'll not touch her." Ned's voice rang out steady as steel. "Enough, Robert, take her in chains. End this now before more blood is spilled." But Robert stood frozen, torn between rage and despair. His hand trembled on the hilt of his sword, but he did not draw. His eyes flicked from Cersei to Jaime, then to Ned. "Gods help me," he whispered. "I have no strength left." Cersei saw her chance. She turned to the gold cloaks, her voice sharp. "Seize Lord Stark. He conspires against your king. He would see the throne fall to ruin." The guards hesitated, looking to Robert. The king's silence damned him. He did not speak, did not command. His weakness filled the room like smoke. Jaime's blade gleamed. "Do as the queen says." In a heartbeat, the gold cloak surged forward. Ned drew ice, its great blade flashing in the torchlight. His men rushed to his side, but they were outnumbered. Steel clashed, shouts filled the chamber, and the war began not on a battlefield, but in the very heart of the Red Keep. Robert watched, broken, as his oldest friend fought for his life against the lions. His voice rose once in a hoarse cry, "Stop!" But no one listened. The choice had been his, and he had failed to make it. Ned fought like the North itself, grim and unyielding, but numbers pressed him down. Jaime's sword found his guard, slicing deep into his leg. He staggered, blood dark on the stone floor. His men fell one by one. At last, the gold cloaks wrenched ice from his hands, forcing him to his knees. Cersei stepped forward, her smile thin and cruel. "The wolf is caged," she said softly, "and soon the realm will bow to lions." Robert slumped back in his chair, his face grey with defeat. He had wanted peace, wanted to avoid the storm, but in his weakness he had unleashed it. Outside the Red Keep, the bells tolled again, their iron voices heavy in the air. The city did not yet know, but war had begun. And in that moment, Ned Stark understood what his honor had cost him, not just his freedom, but the realm itself.